The skies over the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI, Victoria Island, holds no clue as to the event about to unfold. The arrival of presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, lets the cat out of the bag. Once inside with senior members of the PDP, including Governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambuwal, present, and top business personalities, the Private Sector Economic Forum for the 2023 presidential elections begins.
This year, we are witnessing very high oil price, but Nigeria is not benefiting from it. Nigeria is not aligned. For about a decade, equity prices have been high, but Nigeria is not benefiting global equity prices. Saudi Arabia has listed Aramco, and today they own Aramco 2.4 trillion on their balance sheet, an economy of only $800 billion. Nigeria is postponing the day of listing NMPC.
His preamble sets the stage for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who indicates why the country needs sound economic policies.
Creating economic opportunities for Nigerians will represent significant implication for social cohesion and national security. Increased jobs and income opportunities will reduce the likelihood of our youth being involved in crime, violence, and conflict, motivated by manipulating religious, ethnic, or regional differences. Economic prosperity is an integral part of my 5-point agenda, soon to be officially unveiled, that seeks to restore Nigeria's unity. 1, strengthen national security. 2, foster economic prosperity. 3, improve education. 4, delivery and restructure the polity. 5.
He goes on to unveil his economic agenda if voted into office at next year's presidential elections.
Understanding the private sector and securing their buy-in when policies are designed will determine the success of our economic growth and development agenda. Through regular dialogue with the private sector, we will build consensus, improve trust between us, and make new reform initiatives easier to implement and sustainable.
A sense of wetting of the apple and Nigerians is left behind on the intentions just revealed.
All right, welcome back. Yes, that is what we're going to focus on this morning. We've got Chief Alaba Yusuf joining us here in the studio. He is the Head Public Relations and a member of Spokesperson's Committee of Atiku Okowa 2023 Presidential Campaign Team. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chibalen, and good morning, Nigerians.
Well, we will have an economist also join us in a moment, but in the meantime, yeah, much as yes, trying to reel out what he would do in the economy if he's elected. But I mean, yes, it's the economy, but it's still politics. And then you wonder, many always ask this question, wait a minute, your party is still embroiled in this back and forth. Is that not going to weigh heavily on the party moving into these elections, even though we're talking about trying to put the economic footprint out there at the moment?
Thank you very much. I wanted to sit this discussion on the comfortable sofa of knowledge, which has to do with the message and the messenger. Who is the man Atiku? A man who has turned around his own life, his own community, even at national level. He's done it before. So he means business. So the party on its own, I don't speak for the party. But we know that as a public relations person, in human affairs, conflict is bound to happen. But conflict resolution is always there as well. There are mechanisms for it. Consultation is going on, conciliation is going on. And the third C will not happen, which is confrontation. It won't happen. I can bet with you.
But when that controversy questions a man's integrity, it raises more questions because, I mean, you heard the Rivers governor say categorically that can the man Atiku, as you say or deny categorically at that he did agree or he did say that the chairman of the party actually has to go. He hasn't responded to that.
Shebale, I said it earlier on. I wouldn't like to be dragged into this, but common sense dictates that there's a difference between a presidential candidate emerging and a president emerging. What the rule says, the convention of the PDP, is that once a president comes from one zone, definitely the chairman cannot come from the same zone, not presidential candidates.
No, they're two different things.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
Try to understand what I'm saying. Now, to say that someone said if the president comes, the president has not come from the north. You have a presidential candidate coming from the north.
That's why I say they're two different things. Yeah. When you say you don't want to be dragged into this, there's nothing to be dragged into because this is what is out there. And it speaks
no,
to
we have explained it over and over. That's what I'm saying.
No, they haven't explained this part where the Rivers governor, after the BOT chairmanship changed, the Rivers governor said, look, that is the one we spoke about. We had a conversation, himself and your candidates. He did categorically tell the Rivers governor that, yes, I agree that Aju has to go. Now, the reason why this is coming up is, look, yes, it's real that his policies, but they say, look, how do we take politicians for what they are? They could say anything. And if what we're seeing now, you have said you're going to do this, you didn't do it, on what basis then are we then going to agree with all of what you said you would do? If
that's what you're saying, you say politicians say things. Who was the third party to this agreement? Where was this agreement written? The Rivers governor, our very good brother, you know, the talk and do guy, as a PR person, I would tell people that it is high time to sip the milk of truth. You understand me? There are times you fight a good fight and you do it in a wrong manner. Do you get my point? The fact remains that when he was campaigning, he did not say he doesn't want to be VP. And because of, do you understand me? He said it, did it. But this is politics. Atiku is a statesman. He will not be caught napping. He's interested in how to revive Nigeria. Where the country is in a slope. Well, the country is broke. Atiku is throwing down a rope of hope. That's what we should be talking about. Excuse me, I don't think we should be going into... Oladimeji has been here. A couple of people have been here to discuss this matter. The party is working on it. I know journalists want headlines. I'm a journalist too.
No, would you respect that begs the question.
Yeah.
Because has your principal, for instance, told you categorically that I did not agree to what Wike said that Ayu has to go? Has he told you that?
All I'm saying to you, if there was any agreement or discussion, it is if a president comes from the north, not a presidential candidate coming from the north. It is not about him saying it, it's about what the convention, the PDP rules.
So if he hasn't told you that I did not agree that the chairman has to go, as the Rivers governor has said, on what grounds then are you saying that it is when the candidate emerges?
I'm saying to you, that's the PDP rules. If a president comes from the north, from one zone, the chairman cannot come from the same zone. It's quite different from a presidential candidate. Excuse me.
That's not what I'm asking.
That's what I said to you.
But that's not what I'm asking.
I'm just saying to you.
Question you want to answer.
Excuse me. The presidential candidate is not the party. It's not the one that makes the rules. He cannot on his own say, this is what he's saying for the party. So the party says, the party rule states that if the president comes from a particular zone, the chairman will come from another zone. And if the chairman comes from one zone, the secretary will go to the other zone. It's quite simple. It's not just one office. What I'm saying is that why it's like a case in court. You don't want to start talking about it. That's why I'm saying people are working on how to reconcile people. You know, we should not put a wedge.
You know, what you're saying is, it's clear that you don't want to answer that question directly.
No, we're here to discuss.
He's reeled out
we're talking
his
about,
policies.
excuse me, Nigeria is there's hunger in the land.
Hang on a minute. Now that he's discussed all of these policies, because it's not just about isolating a particular matter. Many will be looking at the big picture, because even when you do public relations, you don't isolate a particular matter. You're packaging the person himself, totality of that, and this is part of it all.
This is what I just said to you.
He's reeled out these policies.
Yes.
And many will look at it and say, look, well, okay, well, he said this, which is usual things that politicians will tell you that they will do.
But he also talked about dialogue. If you have read that statement very well, he talked about dialogue and national cohesion to build unity for national development.
To build unity for national development.
Yes.
But you can't unify the fracas going on with your party.
See,
then you want to unify the country?
Excuse me.
How is that going, how is it going to do that?
Excuse me. It's not, let's make this a one-man business. Atiku is a team leader. He's a team player. This is a party matter.
So he can't,
nobody is bigger than the
party.
He's not the type of person that will go in the press. You understand me?
Okay, if he will not go in the press, has he then told you that he didn't agree to what the Rivers government said he agreed on?
Excuse me. What you trying to? The angle you are pushing. Don't forget we're all journalists together.
We're not pushing any
angle.
Excuse
me. All I'm saying to you, excuse me, because His Excellency Atiku has not come to say.
There is nothing we're asking here that Nigerians haven't wondered about. There's no big deal here.
His Excellency Atiku is a member of the PDP. His Excellency Nyesom Wike is also a member of the party. The chairman of the party is a member of the party. There's a national working committee of the party. You have the board of trustees. People should respect the organogram of an institution. The party has a way of, there are rules. That's why I'm not, you say we should treat things holistically. So that's why I'm not dragging one point out to say somebody said this person said that. If people have grievances, let them table it. There are channels of settling dispute. Do you get my point? So, because this is a more serious matter. Today, you started your program with students blocking the highway. Let's not forget that the 1789 French Revolution was caused by the absence of bread. Hunger. Nigeria is moving towards that end now. God forbid.
Well, you know,
so that's what I'm saying.
Looking through the policies,
the issue of an individual
economic policies that he reeled out, because we can't tell Nigerians, they'll make up their minds, have their votes, looking at the whole thing. They'll ask questions of the persons. They look at what they've done. It won't just be based, perhaps I reckon, may not be based on just one item, but that's up to them to decide. But because he's been in government as well, so he's not new. People have seen certain things about him, so they will form their opinion and their perspectives. But if you look at some of his policies or things that he says that he will do, you know, you have people who wonder, looking at all of these, they could easily ask themselves, look, several people have said the different fora that as the country is presently structured, some of economic policies will not just work until you strengthen the federating units and ensure that they function, because they always take us down history lane and tell you, look at when the regions were competing with themselves. Economically, academically, institutions were coming up, they were really strong. And so if we don't lay emphasis on that, we still may have a challenge, no matter how much of these policies you realize.
Yes, thank you very much for saying this. Atiku believes in government of national unity. He's the first among his peers to talk about devolution of power. And what is devolution of power? Giving enough responsibility to the states, federating units. He has always been talking about lean federal government. And he has mentioned it. It's part of his 5 points agenda. That's why he comes across as a unifier, a bridge builder, a reformer. And it's something he has done before. You look at the totality of his life. Atiku is pan-Nigeria, is detribalized. He's not a religious bigot. And he's a compassionate politician. He's a statesman. And that's why you don't see him talking recklessly anywhere. You can't say Atiku said this. No. He would rather talk to you, even when he disagrees with you, he talk to you nicely. So what I'm saying is that the issue of his policies coming across as a bridge builder, as a unifier, is going to bring people together from everywhere. He has always been talking about it, that there is need to build unity for national development.
Well, that question just can't seem to get off my mind. But since another guest joined us, and Kaide would also like to come in. Go ahead, Kaide.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. We're joined virtually by Mr. Boniface Chizia, who is an economist. He joins us virtually this morning from here in Lagos. Good morning, Mr. Chizia. I know the conversation is largely... yes, it's for you. I know this conversation is largely about the economy, but you know, just piggybacking off that question that Chamberlain raised with our guest in Abuja, Chief Yusuf. It's one thing to make economic pronouncements, talk about ideas, things that we need to do, talk about the challenges, how we need to get to where we ought to get to. But in terms of you know, the personality of the person, maybe the track record, the pedigree. Do you think that plays a key role in receiving the messaging? I mean, those policies, those solutions for the private sector, for the electorate. How big a role do you think that plays in internalizing those, you know, lofty ideas?
Well, you know, I think that the message and the messenger, you know, they are both important, you know. And in fact, I think the thing to say is that we're not short on sound bites, you know, that sound interesting, that sound credible. I think we come short, you know, when it comes to the implementation. That has been the record of this for Nigeria, and probably, if you like, that has been the problem we've had all this while. Well, I don't want to talk about the presenter. What's important really is for you to be a good manager. You don't, as a head of government, you don't have to be an economist per se, but you have to be able to, you know, assemble, mobilize resources, and then be able to utilize resources, and then give them, you know, space, you know, to breathe, you know, give them space, you know, to be able to make comments, and you listen attentively to comments they have to make. They don't have to dictate to you, you know, not that, you know, because you drive your train, but you listen. If you don't give them the opportunity for them to feel that they've been heard, there you might find that you know, morale is being affected. But I think that I read through the presentation. I'm sure that eventually we'll get to that, and I have some issues with it, you know.
Well, let's just get right into it. Right. Okay. So let's get right into it. Let me just paint a background just before you go on. I know there's a lot to say about this. So, I mean, Nigerians know where we are, really, but just to put this in proper context. So, I mean, we've talked about the budget deficit, 12 trillion naira, debt servicing really huge as compared with our revenue. Inflation is at, what, 19%, unemployment 33%, our poverty rate. I mean, we're second to India. In fact, you know what, about 90 million Nigerians are said to be in poverty right now. I mean, there's lots of indices that point to, I mean, our economy not being where it ought to be. And you know, the former vice president, the PDP presidential candidate, spoke about his plans, the economy. He spoke to the private sector, and I'd like you to begin from this. He talked about lots of opportunities for private sector, and this is what we've heard from previous candidates in the run-up to elections. Is there really anything more opportunities for the private sector that has not been exploited yet?
Well, I think that he made a meal of saying that he's going to private sector is the engine of the economy and so on. For us, an obvious statement. Yeah, I'm not, what the government, fiscal authorities, monetary authorities are supposed to do is to provide an enabling environment. Right, so the private sector, everybody knows, is the engine of growth. You know, so talk of the real sector, you're talking of manufacturing, you're talking of agriculture, you know, you're talking of SMEs, small and medium-scale enterprises. So you're saying the obvious, but he made a meal of that. But I think that obviously, and for a long time, I'm not going back to the time of Philip Asiodo as economic advisor. In fact, he had a pamphlet he published about which was titled "The Private Sector Led Economy." So I think it's obvious, you know, having the private sector lead the economy. But I think that in the context of what you said, for instance, I told the point, I'm really surprised that all the figures are in dollars. And so I think that we've not, the last time I checked, we've not tender currency. It's still Naira. But all the figures there, if I stand to be corrected, they are all in dollars. But I think that for me, what impressed me most was the fact that he talked about restructuring the polity, and also talked about restructuring the economy. And talks about taking Nigeria out of darkness. I think that, like I said, we don't come short on, sound bites and making proposals. But Albert Trust has been, having them implemented.
Yeah, he spoke about the foreign exchange as well, and I find it quite interesting that you asked why those figures were not in Naira. And I'm wondering for you, if you were to do that conversion, which of the rates would you use? Would you use the official one or the 697? Because that's been the challenge for a lot of people. So which would you have advised he use? I mean, we'll get to the other important issues, but just to take that out of the way.
But central bank doesn't accept. Central bank doesn't accept that as a parallel market. There was a time that central bank was having issues with the rates at the parallel market and so on and so forth, and we're trying to chase that rate. And central bank came and made a categorical definitive statement to say that as far as they are concerned, parallel market is insignificant. But of course, for economic agents, but the reality on ground is that if you need to source foreign exchange, and then you can't get it from the official sources, we are challenged in that respect. Then you get it from the alternative source. And of course, most economic agents in this environment, the fact is that they've done their pricing, using the parallel market rates. And so while the official rate is like 420, thereabout, around that's the official window, but the parallel market, as I've been told, has gone up beyond 700 Naira. So I think those are some of the issues. And of course, what the challenge that it poses the authorities is that the arbitrage opportunity, that the spread between the official and the parallel market rate, it creates lots of incentive, for trying to round trip and so on and so forth. So I think that those are the challenges. But if you ask me, if you are operating officially, central bank will never operate. It doesn't recognize. There was a time the central bank, in fact, went after Aboki, FX,
right,
and tried to drive them out of the market. So I think that obviously what we use the official rate.
Well, what we use, I'd like you to be clear on that. When you say we, do you mean the majority of Nigerians? Because there are people today that will look you in the face and tell you that is not the case. When we want to source foreign exchange, we have to get the 690, 700 and above, because they have to do business, they have to pay for school fees, they have to do, medical fees and all of that. So I think it's important to just speak to that reality that, yes, we wish that you were that official rate of just over 400, but the reality out there is that it is 690, 700 and the rest. Would you agree with that?
I thought I made myself very clear in my response. I didn't say that official rate is 420, and if you're operating in this economy, and the challenge is the fact that stares all of us in the face, is the fact that we're challenged with supply of foreign exchange. And so I don't know of anybody who operates in this economy today that's able to source all this foreign exchange from the official market. So if you're not able to do so, and you're going to source from the parallel market, then of course I expect that you play safe if you're an economic agent by pricing, at the parallel market rate, because then it's safer for you to do so. Because even then, if you get it at the official rate, like I talked about the spread between the official rate and the parallel market rate, then you are making a kill. So I talked about the round-tripping temptation that is there because of this massive spread. But of course, there's nothing anybody can do about this in the present circumstances.
Well, Mr. Chizia, the candidate of the People's Democratic Party actually says, there's something that can be done about this. And I'll take this back to our guest in Abuja, Chief Yusuf. And I'll just take from, some of the statements he made. This one particularly about foreign exchange before we move on to other things. And particularly about foreign exchange, he said that we will push, in order to achieve a stable exchange rate, we will push for a foreign exchange policy that encourages capital inflow and makes capital outflows less attractive to the investors. And he said, read my lips, I'm saying a stable foreign exchange, not $1 to 1 Naira. And we're faced with this, disparity. There's the official exchange rate. There's the reality for a lot of Nigerians. So in terms of getting it stable, I mean, we could talk about the value maybe, but getting it stable, what kind of policy is your candidate looking at? Because this is a clear challenge that in fact, this government is trying to get out of?
Thank you very much, Kawade. You know, the campaign starts on the 28th of this month. We have a package. The team of economists will come up and explain the details to Nigerians. His Excellency Atiku, when he talked about unbundling of NMPC in 2019, people thought it was not possible. Today you can see it. When he talked about telecom, the liberalization of the banking and telecom sector, people thought they were not possible. But today, we have seen the impact of what private sector investment in economy and partnership with government, what it can bring about. In those days of tally, where you had to pick tally to collect money in the banks, when there were no credit cards, no phones, we'll be talking about social media. Many people may not be aware of that, especially the young ones. Atiku is a man who walks the talk. He's a visionary.
Quickly about the NMPC conversation, because I recall that this was a major
If you have read his document on my covenant with Nigerians.
Pardon me, Chief Yusuf, you land on that point, but you talked about the NMPC. So what he was proposing then and what this government has done, I believe they're different entirely. He was, I mean, in line with privatization of sorts. But what this government has done was create a vehicle by government, by the way, you know, the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Petroleum Resources to own this in trust for Nigerians. So it's still sort of government, but at least with another string attached. So you can't clearly say they are the same. What he was saying was privatization.
Has that reduced the price of petrol?
No, this is about this is about his proposal and what happened now. You are saying that it has now been done.
I'm just saying,
has that been done, really?
There's something you call cut and paste. There's something you call cut and paste. If you have read Malam El-Rufai's Asdeta public servant, don't forget he was the former DG, Director General of the Bureau for Public Enterprise. You will understand that Atiku never had any intention, and he never bought nor sold any national asset to himself. All he's talking about is that you cannot continue to fund ailing companies. And as at that time, his plan was that a few things should be sold out to private sector so that government can raise money. A part of NMPC as at that time will have earned Nigeria a lot of dollars, which could have been used in structural development. But, you know, and he has said it in the past that governments have no business in business. The business of government is to create an enabling environment for business to thrive. It is the private sector which understands business, and they can make it, they can strive and make it thrive. So essentially, talking about he says we encourage manufacturing and promotion of export promotion, because if you only take money, take loans to service debt, take loans for consumption, you always be in debt. And like the Yorubas will say, that a man who borrows money to pay off another debt is the king of debtors. So essentially, what Atiku is saying is that we are broke. The country is in a slope. Atiku is throwing down a rope of hope. And I think we should look at what he's saying.
Help me clear this, Chief Yusuf. It's a bit ironic to me. Perhaps you can provide more insight. So he had said in that statement, in that speech, that he would, you know, provide incentives sort of to encourage foreign investors to take risks. Those were his words, to take risks in this economy and essentially show them that it's lucrative to do business here. But in terms of, you know, the foreign exchange policy, he says that he would push for a foreign exchange policy that encourages capital inflows and makes capital outflows less attractive to investors. And that's been a challenge of recent. I mean, you recall the airlines saying that, you know what, we have a lot of funds trapped right there in that economy. We need to get it out. So if he's saying that he will encourage inflows and sort of make outflows less attractive, isn't that just repeating the same challenge that we're faced with right now?
Kayode, human beings make or mar things. Atiku is a man that has a large expanse of network. And that's why his net worth is high. He knows what he's talking about when he says he's going to draw in capital. He has that influence. He has global outlook with local focus. And we don't need to doubt him. When it was not suitable or not even profitable to invest in the Northeast, Atiku has American University of Nigeria. Atiku has Adama Beverages and several other companies. When people were talking about other things, Atiku has invested in a lot of businesses. He understands business. And that's why he said he was discussing at the Chamber of Commerce in Lagos that he was discussing with like minds.
I understand.
And that's why he opened up to them. Yes, what I'm saying, when the time comes, the economic team will come and speak to you about this in details.
Okay, I understand. Just in terms of receiving this, I mean, you're a public relations person. You've had years of experience. I just want you to maybe help people internalize this better. So they see what's going on right now. A lot of people are blaming the government that allow these people get access to their funds. Investors will not want to come in if they can't repatriate or take out their funds and all of that. And then your candidate is literally saying the same thing, that I would encourage inflows, but make outflows less attractive. So do you want people to see this as the same with what this government is doing, which is the easy way out, or is there an alternative explanation to that?
Kayode, let me put it to you as well. There is channel television. There are other channels, right? We all talk about news, information, entertainment, and so everybody talks about it, but channel has won awards several times. What is it that channel is doing differently that makes channel tick? Atiku is a man who understands the business of business. He knows what he's talking about. And it's not on television. They're going to be talking about that now. Let the campaign start on the 28th, and we reel out things for people to see. You will see what he has done, what he's going to do. There's a difference between I will do or I have done. We can see what Atiku have done in the past. So, and for him to say, and now there's more experience. Atiku is going to get himself involved in e-administration. He's talking about prudency in government, blocking leakages.
Right.
You know, so these are things that the economic team will come and sort this out.
Okay, Chief Yusuf, we're due for a break
Atiku
now.
knows what he's talking about.
Right. Pardon me, we're due for a break now, but don't worry. We'll be back in a moment. We still have Mr. Chize joining us virtually. There's a conversation around employment, ensuring people are lifted out of poverty. Infrastructure is also a big one. He's spoken about how to get private participation, but you wonder just how much. So please stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
All right, welcome back. Well, Mr. Chize, I haven't heard Chief Yusuf explain Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's perspective as to how he will handle the expectations on forex and investors making capital flight less attractive to investors. Are you satisfied with his explanation, saying, well, look, the man understands what business entails and that, well, he will handle business when the time comes? How does that sound to you?
Well, I think that let me just make one or two comments about the rate of exchange, because it's dominated discussions in this lines. You know, I think that there's no magic wand. The central bank is on record to have said that if we stop importation of fuel, they are prepared to liberalize foreign exchange. You know, what you have today is not feasible. If you try to do it, you know, the bottom will fall up off the rate of exchange. The rate of exchange is getting to, you know, it gets beyond what it is today. And you know, when this government came on board, it was about 150 something naira to a dollar. Today we're talking about issue rate that's 400 naira. So there's no magic wand. We need to bring back productivity in the economy. The economy you have today is so tied to consumption. There's no economic agent that operates in this economy that is not dependent on importation of one form or another. And we don't have an export base. There's one base we have, which is oil. It's ravaged by corruption. We don't even know the amount of oil we extract. We don't know the amount of oil we sell. We don't know the amount of oil we consume. We're not sure. We don't even know. The subsidy. The subsidy itself, you calculate it, it's a problem. And so I think those are challenges. There's no anybody that tells you anything throughout the thing and float the rate of exchange and so on and so forth doesn't know what he's talking about. Now let me address what he's saying. I think what the PDP is trying to say is that yes, okay, you make inflow of dollars, you make it attractive. Yes, that's what we want. We want people to to come in and invest. But also on the other side, if you make it, there must be some freedom. If somebody wants to take out his money, one of the problems you have today, the challenge you have today, is that economic agents are not being able to take out their funding. And so you find that the airlines are saying, look, we have so much money blocked in your economy, and we're not taking it out, and we have expenses that are based in dollars, and we can't go on this way. We're going to stop operations. So we've gone through all this, and it goes across sectors. So that's the challenge. So we talk about foreign exchange, but there's no magic wand. So we need to bring back productivity to this economy. We have to begin to end foreign exchange. And I guess we can do that. Like I said earlier on, by the time we begin to talk about restructuring this economy, restructuring the polity, bringing back competition to the various sectors of the economy, and so that we take our minds off, sharing this shrinking cake. And people now have various sectors. It's not something that we didn't do before. We had it just immediately post-independence. But the regions were very active. So in the north you had pyramid, in the east you had palm oil, and then you had cocoa and so on. And people were producing and paying. And those forget about this resource control. People let people earn the thing, keep what they've earned, and pay tax to the center. And so and then you now pare down the center. And you make the center most unattractive. What this competition you're having today is because the center, there's so much concentration of power at the center. And so the person that's in Aso Rock has almost the power of life, life and death. And that mustn't go on post-2023 elections.
Let's even get Chief to respond to that bit. Chief, does your principal subscribe to this resource control? What is his thinking about it?
To start with, His Excellency Atiku has promised that within the first 100 days in government, if Nigerians elect him, he's going to draw in money and create emergency power program to our capacity.
Power program?
Yeah.
I asked about resource control.
I know what you're talking about. He has talked about devolution of power in the medium terms. Create enabling environment for business to grow. If business grows and there's lean central, states will be able to control what they have in terms of have access to what they have and pay tax to the center. But there must be structure. He has talked about fiscal planning. He has talked about even a hub within the presidency to monitor the MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies. You understand me? So the issue of resource control as far is the National Assembly. It's not something that the president just say. Government is not one person. And that's what we should all understand. You understand me?
Isn't that contrary, Chief? What he says is National Assembly. But what does he think about it?
Who makes the law?
He certainly will have a perspective.
There are three arms of government.
Everybody knows that. But
yes.
He has to have a perspective.
Excuse me. If, see, as a person, as a politician, he has the right to lobby. He can't lord it over anybody.
What will he be lobbying for?
Me? When he talks about dialogue, every other thing is inclusive.
What will he be lobbying for?
I'm just saying to you, if government says, as at now, government gets how much as resource control or whatever to the states.
Is he going to be lobbying the National Assembly to support his perspective on resource control?
Every president lobbies the National Assembly to get along with them, to get their programs done.
Lobby the National Assembly to back him for resource control so that states can control their resources?
But resource control is relative, isn't it? It's relative. Are you talking 100%? Are you talking 50%? Are you talking 10%?
I'm asking you, what is his thinking? What is his perspective about it?
Definitely, resource control will be part of the things he will lobby for.
In what way exactly? Specifically?
When the time comes.
What percentage?
When the time comes, when discussion, when discussion is put on the table.
We don't have anything on that.
Dialogue is not about one person saying something.
Okay, so we don't know. You can't tell us what he thinks about that. But when he talks about millions of Nigerians going to bed hungry, Nigerians must feed, they will pursue aggressive and innovative food production policy. He talked about the farmers. What is he specifically going to do to get people out of poverty? Because we know how heavy the country is.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If you know the background of Atiku, he's lost his father at the age of 11. He became a breadwinner in the family. At the age of 15, he bought a house for his mother.
What's your point?
The point I'm making is, Atiku is a farmer. He knows poverty. He knows the meaning of poverty. He got himself out of poverty. A man that can turn around his own life and that of his community can turn around the national economy. So the point is this: Atiku has fertilizer company. He's into livestock. Do you understand me? He has farms. He understands, he has microfinance company, bank, that gives loans, to 80% of it to women. How do you take people? Because if you invest in women, you are improving the nation. The family, the entire family is involved. So what I'm saying is that when he has said that he's going to put money into micro, small, and medium enterprises, because that is the engine room of jobs. Atiku is a wealth creator. So taking people out of poverty. In China, it's not the government that's doing most of the things. Every family has one thing they're doing. And that's why its interest is.
Is that what he wants to do here? To get every family to get what they want to do?
Excuse me. Talking about, is there a family, let's say extended family, where you don't have a farmer? Government cannot provide job for everyone. But what I'm saying,
there are several families who don't have farmers in their
I say extended. By the time you draw the extension.
In other words, what we should take from this is that when he speaks about getting people out of poverty, he's talking about farmers.
Not just farmers, the unemployed, the youth. Atiku's University is the headquarters of e-knowledge, Google certified. Young people, so that everybody is not going to depend on government job.
So do we have
Atiku University, excuse me.
You have to go to his university.
Excuse me, I'm not saying you have to go to his university. I'm just saying it's like a pilot scheme. That's what I'm trying to say. Where you have developmental scheme, where people are trained in vocation. In UK, for instance, it's not everybody that goes to university, right? You have apprenticeship, and they even make more money than graduates. You are aware of this. What I'm saying is that he's a man who understands business. He knows that private sector is the one that can create jobs. And when he says he will get people out of poverty, he will surely do that.
Well, when he says that he will undertake far-reaching fiscal restructuring to improve liquidity and manage the fiscal
and block
flow.
leakages.
And then I see he also went ahead and says how he reeled out how several government agencies, for instance, he talked about, is it 17 of them, that there are too many policies, too many SMEs. He speaks about 17 agencies under supervision. So then looking through, you'd have thought that he said, since there are too many, that something will give, but we don't see anything following that. Is he saying he's going to merge?
This is one speech.
No, is he going to merge ministries, for instance? Since he says there are too many agencies, as it were.
Remember, under the Obasanjo Atiku regime, administration, there was what's called the Orosanye report.
So this is
I'm just saying,
is he copying and pasting it here?
Excuse me. Orosanye worked under them. The committee was, I'm just saying, the committee was set up An idea that is still good, that is still relevant to this present moment, why will you throw it away?
So
no
if
case dies.
Enough,
All I'm saying.
Did he mention it here?
Excuse me, I'm just saying to you. I'm just saying, this is one speech.
Yeah, we're trying to understand it.
You need to read his covenant with Nigerians to get to the details of everything he's trying to talk about.
Well, you've read
See,
it.
Excuse me, I'm just saying to you, let the campaign start. Because there are people who are there trying to pick things to make up their own campaign item. But you know that.
I don't understand.
You know.
I don't quite get the point. So, if we're trying to understand if he's going to merge ministries, it's not going to be rocket science for anybody else to do.
I said let the campaign start. Some people are still building their own manifesto. Atiku is already miles ahead.
So what, you're holding back because you don't want people to
all I'm saying to you, see, we have sectors. When the economic team comes here, they will tell you in details when the campaign starts. There are some people looking somewhere who are trying to pick some of the ideas of Atiku.
Oh, you're talking to Nigerians.
It was just, I know. I'm just saying to you. He has just told you. Excuse me. He has told you. He has told you these are the things he wants to do. In broad terms.
Broad terms, not specific terms.
Excuse me. He has said he will create jobs. He has said he will improve power supply. He has said he will put money into micro, medium, small and small enterprises. He has said he will make government prudent. He will work on lean government. He has said he will dialogue with people. He will bring people on the table. He will unify the country. I think we should take him, believe him. Atiku is traceable. It's believable and it's plausible.
Well, Mr. Chizia, when he speaks about the MSMEs and if he's going to inject $310 billion into the MSME funds and speaking about the farmers as well, in context of getting people out of poverty, what kind of impact will this have?
Well, first of all, $10 billion is Dr. Chizia. You guys seem to forget. I think that, I think that, okay, I see you're still laughing. Chamberlain, I think that's what to bring about poverty alleviation. First of all, let me make a comment on about whether, in fact, it's going to collapse MDAs and so on and so forth. I think what he tried to do there, he itemized. We looked at the Ministry of Trade, and then he showed so many agencies and departments, within that. I was saying that, in fact, they are bound to be acting at cross purposes. And what is implied there is, to some extent, like the gentleman at the studio just said, that there's an implied indication that there might be a need for us to restructure, which I think I subscribe to. But on the other hand, he also goes ahead to say that in the presidency, he was going to create a unit that we talked about, infrastructure, debt financing, and so on and so forth. And one of the things we must take on going forward is that he also says there are some inconsistencies. He talks about reducing, when you do the budget, he wants to reduce the revenue side, revenue expenditure, so about 45%. Now, and then, that means you try and boost the capital expenditure. Of course, again, that's the way to go, because if you have capital expenditure, that's what's going to create the growth that creates the employment and so on and so forth. But then what that means is that going forward, like he did say also in his presentation, you have to rationalize expenditure. And so they're looking forward, they must be looking forward to saying, look, we have to rationalize the agencies and departments and so on and so forth. And then also in the report, of course, goes back to 2014. It's dated as it were. We'll keep on harping on it. But I think that, again, but that could be indicative. But for you to bring about growth in the economy, to bring about SMEs and so on. SMEs are the engine of the economy. And for them to thrive, the economy, they must have an enabling environment, they must have access to funding, they must have access to resources, they produce whatever they produce, they must market what they produce and so on and so forth. So you have to try as much as possible to remove the restrictions and challenges on their part. But the SMEs are a short path for you to grow the economy, because in terms of job creation, that's a potent sector for creating jobs in the economy. And like has been highlighted, it's becoming a symptom. It's the fact that unemployment in this economy is a huge problem. And that has added, to a large extent, to social problems we have in our economy. So I think that there are some inconsistencies. I expect that as they go on, this things will be tidied up. I go with the fact that we need to rationalize agencies, but it's not going to be very easy for us to do. But then we hope that they find the political will to do so. Just as we hope that someone will find the political will to make sure that there's no subsidy. There's no subsidy.
The thing about
subsidy.
Dr. Tisha, the thing about these things, if you say it's implied, and they'll tell you, I never said this. The chief will always, if you imply something, the chief will say, well, my principal did not tell you he will do this. So if you imply, that is your own implied or implication, your meaning. So that's what I'd like to ask them specifically. What will he do concerning these things? That's why we put it that way. But I do get your point, absolutely. But just to wind down on this, I mean, civil service is huge. It's an engine room for some of these things. If I could just ask Chief on the final note, what is his thinking? Is it likely to say, look, civil service is too wieldy. We need to do something drastic about civil service because policies rise and fall at that level?
His Excellency Atiku said he will take tough decisions, not on civil service.
Not what?
He will take tough decisions on security.
Not on civil service?
Listen to me now. He will take tough decisions on security. And there's going to be a monitoring session in the presidency that will make sure that everybody that earns money from government adds value to government.
All right, Chief Alaba Yusuf.
And that means, in broad terms, sanity in the system.
Is this streamlining civil service? What does sanity mean?
Sanity in the system is that you work your time, you time your work.
So we won't streamline the civil service?
I would not understand your English.
I thought you said he worked with the Oronsaye report.
Excuse me.
He worked in the presidency.
Excuse me.
He knows
all
what
I'm
to
saying,
do. And the report said
whatever is good,
down.
whatever is good in the Oronsaye report will be taken.
Whatever is good doesn't mean anything, Chief.
It's empty as streamlining. So all I'm saying that he has not said, Atiku is not going to take job from people, but you make people more productive.
Well, I know you were say that. I know. Chief Alaba Yusuf is the head public relations and member spokespersons committee of Atiku Okowa 2023 Presidential Campaign Council. We've also had Dr. Boniface Chizia, an economist, both of them weighing in on the policies of the presidential candidate of the PDP. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on. Then we will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.